May our Father, Messiah, Holy Spirit with us. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, proclaim Jerusalem's abominations there, and say, Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, to Jerusalem, by origin and birth you are from the land of the Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite. Well, wow, it says, O mortal, proclaim Jerusalem's abominations there, and say, Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, to Jerusalem, by origin and birth you are from the land of the Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite. As for your birth, when you were, this it just explains it right here. It says, Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, to Jerusalem, by origin and birth, you are from the land of the Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite. As for your birth, so it's saying his father was Amorite and mother Hittite. As for your birth, when you were born, your navel cord was not cut, and you were not bathed in water to smooth you. You were not rubbed with salt, nor were you swaddled. No one pitied you enough to do any of these things for you out of compassion for you. On the day you were born, you were left lying, rejected in the open field. When I passed by you and saw you wallowing in your blood, I said to you, Live in spite of your blood. Yea, I said to you, Live in spite of your blood. I let you grow like the plants of the field, and you continue to grow up until you attained to womanhood, until your breasts became firm and your hair sprouted. You were still naked and bare when I passed by you again and saw that your time for love had arrived. So I spread my robe over you and covered your nakedness. I entered into a covenant with you by oath. Declares our Father in heaven, Elohim, thus you became mine. I bathed you in water and washed the blood off you and anointed you with oil. I clothed you with embroidered garments and gave you sandals of Tahash leather to wear and wound fine linen about your head and dressed you in silks. I decked you out in finery and put bracelets on your arms and a chain around your neck. I put a ring in your nose and earrings in your ears and a splendid crown on your head. You adorned yourself with gold and silver, and your apparel was of fine linen, silk, and embroidery. Your food was choice flour, honey, and oil. You grew more and more beautiful and became fit for royalty. Your beauty won you fame among the nations, for it was perfected through the splendor which I set upon you, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. But confident in your beauty and fame, you played the harlot. You lavished your favors on every passerby. They were his. You even took some of your cloths and made yourself tape stride platforms and fornicated on them. Not in the future, not in time to come. You took your beautiful things made of the gold and silver that I had given you, and you made yourself phallic images and fornicated with them. You took your embroidered cloths to cover them, and you set my oil and my incense before them, the food that I had given you, the choice flour, the oil, and the honey which I had provided for you to eat. You set it before them for a pleasing odor, and so it went. Declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. You even took the sons and daughters that you bore to me and sacrificed them to those images as food, as if your harlotries were not enough. You slaughtered my children and presented them as offerings to them. In all your abominations and harlotries, you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare and lay wallowing in your blood. After all your wickedness, woe to you, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. You built yourself an eminence and made yourself a mountain in every square. You built your mountain at every crossroad, and you sullied your beauty and spread your legs to every passerby, and you multiplied your harlotries. You played the whore with your neighbors, the lustful Egyptians. You multiplied your harlotries to anger me. Now I will stretch out my arm against you and withhold your maintenance, and I will surrender you to the will of your enemies. The Philistine women who are shocked by your lewd behavior and your insatiable lust, you just played the whore with the Assyrians. You played the whore with them, but were still unsated. You multiplied your harlotries with Chaldea, that land of traitors, yet even with this you were not satisfied. How sick was your heart, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. When you did all those things, the acts of a self-willed whore, building your eminence at every crossroad and setting your mound in every square, Yet you were not like a prostitute, for you spurned fees. You were like the adulterous wife who welcomed strangers instead of her husband. Gifts are made to all prostitutes, but you make gifts to all your lovers, and bribe them to come to you from every quarter for your harlotries. You were the opposite of other women. You solicited instead of being solicited. You paid fees instead of being paid fees. Thus you were just the opposite. Now, O harlot, hear the word of our Father in heaven. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because of your brazen infantry offering your nakedness to your lovers for harlotry, just like the blood of your children, which you gave to all your abominable fetishes. I will assuredly assemble all the lovers to whom you gave your favors, along with everybody you accepted and everybody you rejected. I will assemble them against you from every quarter, and I will expose your nakedness to them, and they shall see all your nakedness. I will inflict upon you the punishment of women who commit adultery and murder, and I will direct bloody and impassioned fury against you. I will deliver you into their hands. And they shall tear down your eminence and level your mounds, and they shall strip you of your clothing and take away your dazzling jewels, leaving you naked and bare. Then they shall assemble a mob against you to pelt you with stones and pierce you with their swords. They shall put your houses to the flames and execute punishment upon you in the sight of many women. Thus I will put a stop to your harlotry, and you shall pay no more fees when I have satisfied my fury upon you, and my rage has departed from you. Then I will be tranquil, I will be angry no more. Because you did not remember the days of your youth, but infuriated me with all those things, I will pay you back for your conduct, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. Have you not committed depravity on top of all your other abominations? Why everyone who uses proverbs applies to you the proverb like mother, like daughter. You are the daughter of your mother who rejected her husband and children, and you are the sister of your sisters who rejected their husbands and children, for you are daughters of a Hittite mother and an Amorite father. Your elder sister was Samaria, who lived with her daughters to the north of you. Your younger sister was Sodom, who lived with her daughters to the south of you. Did you not walk in their ways and practice their abominations? Why, you were almost more corrupt than they in all your ways. As I live, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim, your sister Sodom and her daughters did not do what you and your daughters did. Only this was the sin of your sister Sodom. Arrogant, she and her daughters had plenty of bread and untroubled tranquility, yet she did not support the poor and the needy. In their haughtiness, they committed abomination before me, and so I removed them as you saw. Nor did Samaria commit even half your sins. You committed more abominations than they, and by all the abominations that you committed, you made your sisters look righteous. Truly, you must bear the disgrace of serving as your sister's advocate. Since you have sinned more abominably than they appear righteous in comparison. So be ashamed and bear your disgrace, because you have made your sisters look righteous. I will restore their fortunes, the fortunes of Sodom and her daughters, and the fortunes of Samaria and her daughters, and your fortunes along with theirs. That thus you shall bear your disgrace and feel your disgrace for behaving in such a way that they could take comfort. Then your sister Sodom and her daughters shall return to their former state, and Samaria and her daughters shall return to their former state, and you and your daughters shall return to your former state. Was not your sister Sodom a byword in your mouth in the days of your pride, before your own wickedness was exposed? So must you now bear the mockery of the daughters of Aram and all her neighbors, the daughters of Philistia, who jeer at you on every side. You yourself must bear your depravity and your abomination, declares our Father in heaven. Truly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I will deal with you as you have dealt, for you have spurned the pact and violated the covenant. Nevertheless, I will remember the covenant I made with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish it with you as an everlasting covenant. You shall remember your ways and feel ashamed when you receive your older sisters and your younger sisters, and I give them to you as daughters. Though they are not of your covenant, I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall know that I am my Father in heaven. Thus you shall remember and feel shame, and you shall be too ashamed to open your mouth again. That was nasty. Tried to get the bookie out and it didn't come out. And you shall be too abashed to open your mouth again when I have forgiven you for all that you did, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, propound a riddle, and relate an allegory to the house of Israel. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, the great eagle with the great wings and the long pinions, with the flow plumage and the brilliant colors, came to the Lebanon range and seized the top of the cedar. He plucked off its topmost bough and carried it off to the land of traders and set it in the city of merchants. He then took some of the seed of the land and planted it in a fertile field. He planted and set it like a willow beside abundant waters. It grew and became a spreading vine of low stature. It became a vine, produced branches, and set out boughs. He had intended that its twigs should turn to him and that its roots should stay under him. But there was another great eagle with great wings and full of plumage, and his vine now bent its roots in his direction and sent out its twigs toward him, that he might water it more than the bed where it was planted, though it was planted in rich soil beside abundant water, so that it might grow branches and produce boughs and be a noble vine. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, will it thrive? Will he not tear out its roots and rip off its crown, so that its entire foliage withers? It shall wither, despite any strong arm or mighty army that may come to remove it from its roots. And suppose it is transplanted, will it thrive? When the east wind strikes it, it shall wither upon the bed where it is growing. Then the word of our Father in heaven came to me. Say to the rebellious breed, do you not know what these things mean? Say the king of Babylon came to Jerusalem and carried away its king and its officers and brought them back with him to Babylon. He took one of the seed royal and made a covenant with him and imposed an oath on him. And he carried away the nobles of the land, so that it might be a humble kingdom and not exalt itself, but keep his covenant and so endure. But that prince rebelled against him and sent his envoys to Egypt to get horses and a large army. Will he succeed? Will he who does such things escape? Shall he break a covenant and escape? As I live, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim, in the very homeland of the king who made him king, whose oath he flouted and whose covenant he broke. Right there in Babylon he shall die. Pharaoh will not fight at his side with a great army and with numerous troops in the war. When mounds are thrown up and siege towers erected to destroy many lives, he flouted a pact and broke a covenant. He gave his promise and did all these things. He shall not escape. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, as I live, I will pay him back for flouting my pact and breaking my covenant. I will spread my net over him, and he shall be caught in my snare. I will carry him to Babylon and enter with him into judgment. Therefore, the trespass which he committed against me, and all the fugitives of all his battalions shall fall by the sword, and those who remain shall scatter in every direction. Then you will know that I, our Father in heaven, have spoken. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim. Then I will take and set in the ground a slip from the lofty top of the cedar. I will pluck a tender twig from the tip of its crown, and I will plant it on a tall, towering mountain. I will plant it in Israel's lofty highlands, and it shall bring forth boughs and produce branches and grow into a noble cedar. Every bird of every feather shall take shelter in the shade of its boughs. Then shall all the trees of the field know that it is I, our Father in heaven, who have abased the lofty tree and exalted the lowly tree, who have dried up the green tree and made the withered tree bud. I, our Father in heaven, have spoken, and I will act. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. What do you mean by quoting this proverb upon the soil of Israel? Parents eat sour grapes, and their children's teeth are blunted. As I live, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim, this proverb shall no longer be current among you in Israel. Consider all lives are mine. The life of the parent and the life of the child are both mine. The person who sins, only he shall die. Thus, if a man is righteous and does what is just and right, if he has not eaten on the mountains or raised his eyes to the fetishes of the house of Israel, if he has not defiled another man's wife or approached a menstruous woman, if he has not wronged anyone, if he has returned the debtor's pledge to him and has taken nothing by robbery, if he has given bread to the hungry and clothed the naked, if he has not lent at advance interest or exacted accurate interest, if he has abstained from wrongdoing and executed true justice between man and man, if he has followed my laws and kept my rules and acted honestly, he is righteous. Such a man shall live, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. Suppose now that he has begotten a son who is a ruffian, a shedder of blood, who does any of these things, whereas he himself did none of these things, that is, the son has eaten on the mountains, has defiled another man's wife, has wronged the poor and the needy, has taken by robbery, has not returned a pledge, has raised his eyes to the fetishes, has committed abomination, has lent at advanced interest or exacted accrued interest, shall he live? He shall not live. If he has committed any of these abominations, he shall die. He has forfeited his life. And I suppose that he in turn has begotten a son who has seen all the sins that his father committed, but has taken heed and has not imitated them. He has not eaten on the mountains or raised his eyes to the fetishes of the house of Israel. He has not defiled another man's wife. He has not wronged anyone. He has not seized a pledge or taken anything by robbery. He has given his bread to the hungry and clothed the naked. He has refrained from oppressing the poor. He has not exacted advance or accrued interest. He has obeyed my rules and followed my laws. He shall not die for the iniquity of his father, but shall live. To be sure, his father, because he practiced fraud, robbed his brother, and acted wickedly among his kin, did die for his iniquity. And now you ask, why has not the son shared the burden of his father's guilt? But the son has done what is right and just, and has carefully kept all my laws. He shall live. Amen. The person who sins, he alone shall die. A child shall not share the burden of a parent's guilt, nor shall a parent share the burden of a child's guilt. The righteousness of the righteous shall be accounted to him alone, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be accounted to him alone. Moreover, if the wicked one repents of all the sins that he committed and keeps all my laws and does what is just and right, he shall live, he shall not die. None of the transgressions he committed shall be remembered against him. Because of the righteousness he has practiced, he shall live. It is my desire that a wicked person shall die? Says our Father Elohim. It is rather that he shall turn back from his ways and live. So too, if a righteous person turns away from his righteousness and does wrong, practicing the very abominations that the wicked person practice, shall he live. None of the righteous deeds that he did shall be remembered. Because of the treachery he has practiced and the sins he has committed, because of these he shall die. Yet you say the way of our Father in heaven is unfair. Listen, O house of Israel, is my way unfair? It is your ways that are unfair. Facts, when a righteous person turns away from his righteousness and does wrong, he shall die for it. He shall die for the wrong he has done. And if a wicked person turns back from the wickedness that he practiced and does what is just and right, such a person shall save his life, because he took heed and turned back from all the transgressions that he committed. He shall live, he shall not die. Yet the house of Israel say, the way of our Father in heaven is unfair. Are my ways unfair? O house of Israel, it is your ways that are unfair. Be assured, O house of Israel, I will judge each one of you according to his ways, declares our Father in heaven Elohim. Repent and turn back from your transgressions. Let them not be a stumbling block of guilt for you. Cast away all the transgressions by which you have offended, and get yourselves a new heart and a new spirit, that you may not die, O house of Israel. For it is not my desire that anyone shall die, declares our Father in heaven Elohim. Repent therefore and live. And you are to intone a dirge over the princes of Israel, and say, what a lioness was your mother among the lions. Crouching among the great beasts, she reared her cubs. She raised up one of her cubs. He became a great beast. He learned to hunt prey. He devoured men. Nations heeded the call against him. He was caught in their snare. They dragged him off with hooks to the land of Egypt. Mitzrayim, when she saw herself frustrated, her hope defeated, she took another of her cubs and set him up as a great beast. And set him up as a great beast. He stalked among the lions. He was a great beast. He learned to hunt prey. He devoured them. He learned to hunt prey. He devoured men. He ravished their widows, laid waste their cities. The land and all in it were appalled at the sound of his roaring. Nations from the countries round about arrayed themselves against him. They spread their net over him. He was caught in their snare with hooks. He was put in a cage. They carried him off to the king of Babylon and confined him in a fortress, so that never again should his roar be heard on the hills of Israel. Your mother was like a vine, and your blood planted beside streams, with luxuriant boughs and branches, thanks to abundant waters. And she had a mighty rod, fit for a ruler's scepter. It towered highest It towered highest among the leafy trees. It was conspicuous by its height, by the abundance of its boughs, but plucked up in a fury. She was hurled to the ground. The east wind withered her branches. They broke apart and dried up, and her mighty rod was consumed by fire. Now she is planted in the desert, in ground that is arrayed in parched. Fire has issued from her twig, lad and branch, and has consumed her boughs. She is left without a mighty rod, a scepter to rule with. This is a dirge, and it has become a familiar dirge. In the 7th year, on the 10th day of the 5th month, certain elders of Israel came to inquire of our Father in heaven, and sat down before me. And the word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, speak to the elders of Israel, and say to them, Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, have you come to inquire of me? As I live, I will not respond to your inquiry, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. Arraign them, O mortal, declare to them the abhorrent deeds of their fathers. Say to them, Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, on the day that I chose Israel, I gave my oath to the stock of the house of Jacob, when I made myself known to them in the land of Mitzrayim. I gave my oath to them when I said, I, our Father in heaven, am your Elohim. That same day I swore to them to take them out of the land of Mitzrayim into a land flowing with milk and honey, a land which I sought out for them, the fairest of all lands. I also said to them, Cast away, every one of you, the detestable things that you are drawn to, and do not defile yourselves with the fetishes of Egypt, Mitzrayim. I, our Father in heaven, am your Elohim. But they defiled me and refused to listen to me. They did not cast away the detestable things they were drawn to, nor did they give up the fetishes of Egypt, Mitzrayim. Then I resolved to pour out my fury upon them, to vent all my anger upon them there in the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt. But I acted for the sake of my name, that I might not be profane in the sight of the nations among whom they were. For it was before their eyes that I had made myself known to Israel, to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt. I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, and I led them into the wilderness. I gave them my laws and taught them my rules, by the pursuit of which a man shall live. Moreover, I gave them my Sabbaths to serve as a sign between me and them, that they might know that it is I, our Father in heaven, who sanctify them. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. They did not follow my laws, and they rejected my rules, by the pursuit of which a man shall live. And they grossly desecrated my Sabbaths. Then I thought to pour out my fury upon them in the wilderness, and to make an end of them. But I acted for the sake of my name, that it might not be profane in the sight of the nations before whose eyes I had led them out. However, I swore to them in the wilderness that I would not bring them into the land flowing with milk and honey, the fairest of all lands which I had assigned to them, for they had rejected my rules, disobeyed my laws, and desecrated my Sabbaths. Their hearts followed after their fetishes. But I had pity on them and did not destroy them. I did not make an end of them in the wilderness. I warned their children in the wilderness, do not follow the practices of your fathers, do not keep their ways, and do not defile yourselves with their fetishes. I, our Father in heaven, am your Elohim. Follow my laws, and be careful to observe my rules, and hallow my Sabbaths, and hallow my Sabbaths with the A, not a O, and hallow my Sabbaths, that they may be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I, our Father in heaven, am your Elohim. But the children rebelled against me. They did not follow my laws, and did not faithfully observe my rules, by the pursuit of which man shall live. They profane my Sabbaths. Then I resolved to pour out my fury upon them, to vent all my anger upon them in the wilderness. But I held back my hand and acted for the sake of my name, that it might not be profaned in the sight of the nations before whose eyes I had led them out. However, I swore to them in the wilderness that I would scatter them among the nations and disperse them through the lands, because they did not obey my rules, but rejected my laws, profaned my Sabbaths, and looked with longing to the fetishes of their fathers. Moreover, I gave them laws that were not good, and rules by which they could not live. When they set aside every first issue of the womb, I defiled them by their very gifts, that I might render them desolate, that they might know that I am our Father in heaven. Now, O mortals, speak to the house of Israel, and say to them, Thus said that our Father in heaven, Elohim, by this to your fathers affronted me and committed trespass against me when I brought them to the land that I had sworn to give them, and they saw any hill or any leafy tree. They slaughtered their sacrifices there and presented their offensive offerings there. There they produced their pleasing odors and poured out their libations. Then I said to them, What is this shrine which you visit? Therefore such a shrine is called Bama to this day. Now say to the house of Israel, Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, if you defile yourselves as your fathers did, and go astray after the detestable things, and if to this very day you defile yourselves in the presentation of your gifts by making your children pass through the fire to all your fetishes, shall I respond to your iniquity? Shall I respond to your inquiry, O house of Israel? As I live, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim, I will not respond to you. And what you have in mind shall never come to pass. And when you say, we will be like the nations, like the families of the lands, worshiping wood and stone, as I live, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim, I will reign over you with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm and with overflowing fury. With a strong hand and an outstretched arm and overflowing fury, I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands where you are scattered, and I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples, and there I will enter into judgment with you face to face, as I entered into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So will I enter into judgment with you, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. I will make you pass under the shepherd's staff, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will remove from you those who rebel and transgress against me. I will take them out of the countries where they sojourn, but they shall not enter the land of Israel. Then you shall know that I am my Father in heaven. As for you, O house of Israel, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, go every one of you and worship his fetishes and continue if you will not obey me. But do not profane my holy name anymore with your idolatrous gifts. For only on my holy mountain, on the lofty mountain of Israel, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim, there in the land, the entire house of Israel, all of it must worship me. There I will accept them, and there I will take note of your contributions and the choicest offerings of all your sacred things. When I bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands in which you are scattered, I will accept you as a pleasing odor, and I will be sanctified through you in the sight of the nations. Then when I have brought you to the land of Israel, to the country that I swore to give to your fathers, you shall know that I am our Father in heaven. There you will recall your ways and all the acts by which you defiled yourselves, and you will loathe yourselves for all the evils that you committed. Then, O house of Israel, you shall know that I am our Father in heaven when I deal with you for my name's sake, not in accordance with your evil ways and corrupt acts, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. That was a long one. The word of our Father in heaven came to me, O mortal, set your face toward Taman, and proclaim to Daram, and prophesy against the brushland of the Negev. Say to the brushland of Negev, hear the word of our Father in heaven. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim. I am going to kindle a fire in you which shall devour every tree of yours, both green and withered. Its leaping flame shall not go out, and every face from south to north shall be scorched by it. Then all flesh shall recognize that I, our Father in heaven, have kindled it. It shall not go out. And I said, our Father in heaven, Elohim. They say of me, he is just a riddle monger. Then the word of our Father in heaven came to me, O mortal, set your face toward Jerusalem, and proclaim against her sanctuaries, and prophesy against the land of Israel. Say to the land of Israel, thus said our Father in heaven, I'm going to deal with you. I will draw my sword from its sheath, and I will wipe out from you both the righteous and the wicked. In order to wipe out from you both the righteous and the wicked, my sword shall assuredly be unsheathed against all flesh from south to north. And all flesh shall know that I, our Father in heaven, have drawn my sword from its sheath, not to be sheathed again. And you, O mortal, sigh with tottering limbs, and breathe in bitter grief, sigh before their eyes. And when they ask you, why do you sigh? Answer, because of the tidings that have come. Every heart shall sink, and all hands hang nerveless. Every spirit shall grow faint, and all knees turn to water because of the tidings that have come. And it is approaching. It shall come to pass, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. The word of our Father in heaven came to me, O mortal, prophesy and say, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim. Its sword has been whetted and polished. It has been whetted to wreak slaughter. Therefore it has been ground to a brilliant polish. How can we rejoice, my son? It scorns the rod and every stick. It has been given to be polished, and then grasped in the hand. For this has the sword been whetted. For this polished to be put into the hand of a slayer, crying, wail, O mortal, for this shall befall my people. This shall befall all the chieftains of Israel. They shall be cast before the sword, together with my people. O strike the thigh in grief, consider how shall it fall. Consider how shall it fail to happen, seeing that it even scorns the rod, says our Father in heaven, Elohim. Further, O mortal, prophesy, striking hand against hand. Let the sword strike a second time, and yet a third time. It is a sword for massacre, a sword for great carnage that presses upon them. Thus hearts shall lose courage, and many shall fall at all their gates. I have appointed slaughter by the sword. It is made to flash brilliantly. It is honed for slaughter. Be united. Go to the right, turn left. Whither are you bound? I too will strike hand against hand, and will satisfy my fury upon you. I, our Father in heaven, have spoken. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. And you, O mortal, choose 2 roads on which the sword of the king of Babylon may advance, both issuing from the same country, and select a spot. Select it where roads branch off to 2 cities. Choose a way for the sword to advance on Rabbah of the Ammonites, or on fortified Jerusalem and Judah. For the king of Babylon has stood at the fork of the road, where 2 roads branch off to perform divination. He has shaken arrows, consulted teraphim, and inspected the liver. In his right hand came up the omen against Jerusalem, to set battering rams to proclaim murder, to raise battle shouts, to set battering rams against the gates, to cast up mounds, to erect towers. In their eyes the oaths they had sworn to them were like empty divination, but this shall serve to recall their guilt, for which they shall be taken to task. And surely thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, for causing your guilt to be recalled, your transgressions to be uncovered, and your sins to be revealed, all your misdeeds, because you have brought yourselves to my mind, you shall be taken to task. And to you, O dishonored, wicked prince of Israel, whose day has come, the time set for your punishment. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, remove the turban and lift off the crown. Thus this shall not remain as it is. Exalt the low and abase the high, ruin and unto ruin I will make it. It shall be no more until he comes to whom it rightfully belongs, and I will give it to him. Further, O mortal, prophesy and say, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, concerning the Ammonites and their blasphemies, proclaim, O sword, unsheathed for slaughter, polished to the utmost to a flashing brilliance, because they have prophesied falsely about you and have divined deceitfully concerning you. You shall be wildered over the necks of the dishonored wicked ones, for their day has come, the time set for their punishment. Return it to the sheaf, in the place where you were created, in the land of your origin. I will judge you. I will pour out my indignation upon you. I will blow upon you with the fire of my wrath, and I will deliver you into the hands of barbarians, craftsmen of destruction. You shall be fuel for the fire. Your blood shall sink into the earth. You shall not be remembered, for I, our Father in heaven, have spoken. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. Further, O mortal, arraign the city of bloodshed. Declare to her all her abhorrent deeds. Say, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, O city, in whose midst blood is shed, so that your hour is approaching, within which fetishes are made, so that you have become unclean. You stand guilty of the blood you have shed, defiled by the fetishes. You stand guilty of the blood you have shed, defiled by the fetishes you have made. You have brought on your day. You have reached your year. Therefore I will make you the mockery of the nations and the scorn of all the lands. Both the near and the far shall scorn you. O besmirched of name, O laden with iniquity, every one of the princes of Israel in your midst used his strength for the shedding of blood. Fathers and mothers have been humiliated within you. Strangers have been cheated in your midst. Orphans and widows have been wronged within you. You have despised my holy things. And profaned my Sabbaths. Base men in your midst were intent on shedding blood. And in you they have eaten upon the mountains, and they have practiced depravity in your midst. And you they have uncovered their fathers' nakedness. And you they have ravished women during their impurity. They have committed abhorrent acts with other men's wives in their depravity. They have defiled their own daughters-in-law. And you they have ravished their own sisters, daughters of their fathers. They have taken bribes within you to shed blood. You have taken advance and accrued interest. You frauded your countrymen to your profit. You have forgotten me, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. Lo, I will strike my hands over the ill-gotten gains that you have amassed, and over the bloodshed that has been committed in your midst. Will your courage endure? Will your hands remain firm in the days when I deal with you? I, our Father in heaven, have spoken, and I will act. I will scatter you among the nations and disperse you through the lands. I will consume the uncleanness out of you. You shall be dishonored in the sight of nations, and you shall know that I am our Father in heaven. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, the house of Israel has become dross to me. They are all copper, tin, iron, and lead, but in a crucible the dross shall turn into silver. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because you have all become dross, I will gather you into Jerusalem, as silver, copper, iron, lead, and tin are gathered into a crucible to blow the fire upon them, so as to melt them. So will I gather you in my fierce anger and cast you into the fire and melt you. I will gather you, and I will blow upon you the fire of my fury, and you shall be melted in it, as silver is melted in a crucible. So shall you be melted in it, and you shall know that I, our Father in heaven, have poured out my fury upon you. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, say to her, you are an uncleansed lamb, not to be washed with rain on the day of indignation. Her gang of prophets are like roaring lions in her midst, rending prey. They devour human beings. They seize treasure and wealth. They have widowed many women in her midst. Her priests have violated my teaching. They have profaned what is sacred to me. They have not distinguished between the sacred and the profane. They have not taught the difference between the unclean and the clean, and they have closed their eyes to my Sabbaths. I am profane in their midst. Her officials are like wolves, rending prey in her midst. They shed blood and destroy lives to win ill-gotten gain. Her prophets do dog the wall for them with plaster. They prophesy falsely and divine deceitfully. For them they say, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, when our Father in heaven has not spoken, and the people of the land have practiced fraud and committed robbery. They have wronged the poor and needy, have defrauded the stranger without redress. And I sought a man among them to repair the wall or to stand in the breach before me in behalf of this land, that I might not destroy it, but I found none. I have therefore poured out my indignation upon them. I will consume them with the fire of my fury. I will repay them for their conduct, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, once there were two men, daughters of one mother. They played the whore in Egypt. Misraim, they played the whore while still young. Their breasts were squeezed, and their virgin nipples were handled. Their names were the elder one Ahola and her sister Oholiba. They became mine, and they bore sons and daughters. As for their names, Ahola is Samaria, and Oholiba is Jerusalem. Ahola whored. So Samaria whored while she was mine, and she lusted after her lovers, after the Assyrian warriors clothed in blue governors and prefects, horsemen mounted on steeds, all of them handsome young fellows. She bestowed her favorites upon them, upon all the pick of the Assyrians, and defiled herself with all their fetishes. After which she lusted, she did not give up the horn. She had begun with the Egyptians, for they had lain with her in her youth, and they had handled her virgin nipples, and had poured out their lust upon her. Therefore I delivered her into the hands of her lovers, into the hands of the Assyrians, after whom she lusted. They exposed her nakedness. They seized her sons and daughters, and she herself was put to the sword, and because of the punishment inflicted upon her, she became a byword among women. Her sister Jerusalem saw this, yet her lusting was more depraved than her sisters, and her whoring more debased. She lusted after the Assyrians, governors and prefects, warriors, gorgeously clad horsemen mounted on steeds, all of them handsome young fellows, and I saw how she had defiled herself. Both of them followed the same course, but she carried her harlotries further, for she saw men sculptured upon the walls, figures of Chaldeans drawn in vermilion, girded with belts around their waist and with flowing turbans on their heads, all of them looking like officers, a picture of Babylonians, whose native land was Chaldea. At the very sight of them, she lusted after them, and she sent messengers for them to Chaldea. So the Babylonians came to her for lovemaking, and defiled her with their whoring, and she devoured herself with them until she turned from them in disgust. She flaunted her harlotries and exposed her nakedness, and I turned from her in disgust, as I had turned disgusted from her sister. But she whored still more, remembering how in her youth she had played the whore in the land of Misraim. She lusted for concubinage with them, whose members were like those of donkeys, and whose organs were like those of stallions. Thus you reverted to the wantonness of your youth, remembering your youthful breasts, when the men of Egypt handled your nipples. Assuredly, O holy, but thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I am going to rouse against you the lovers from whom you turn in disgust, and I will bring them upon you from all around. The Babylonians and the Chaldeans, the people of Akkad, Shoah, and Koa, and all the Assyrians with them, all of them handsome young fellows, governors and prefects, officers and warriors, all of them riding on horseback. They shall attack you with fleets of wood chariots and a host of troops. They shall set themselves against you on all sides with bucklers, shields, and helmets. and I will entrust your punishment to them, and they shall inflict their punishments on you. I will direct my passion against you, and they shall deal with you in fury. They shall cut off your nose and ears. The last of you shall fall by the sword. They shall take away your sons and daughters, and your remnant shall be devoured by fire. They shall strip you of your clothing and take away your dazzling jewels. I will put an end to your wantonness and to your whoring in the land of Mizraim, Egypt, and you shall not long for them or remember Egypt anymore. For thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I'm going to deliver you into the hands of those who hate, into the hands of those from whom you turn in disgust. They shall treat you with hate, and they shall take away all you have toiled. And they shall take away all you have toiled for, and leave you naked and bare. Your naked whoredom, wantonness, and harlotry will be exposed. These things shall be done to you for your harlotries with the nations, for defiling yourself with their fetishes. You walked in your sister's path, therefore I will put her cup into your hand. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, you shall drink of your sister's cup so deep and wide. It shall cause derision and scorn. It holds so much. You shall be filled with drunkenness and woe, the cup of desolation and horror, the cup of your sister Samaria. You shall drink it and drain it, and gnaw its shards, and you shall tear your breast. For I have spoken, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. Surely thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because you have forgotten me and cast me behind your back, you in turn must suffer for your wanton whoring. Then our Father in heaven said to me, O mortal, arraign Aholah and Aholibah, and charge them with their abominations, for they have committed adultery, and blood is on their hands. Truly they have committed adultery with their fetishes, and have even offered to them as food the children they bore to me at the same time. They also did this to me. They defiled my sanctuary and profaned my Sabbaths. On the very day that they slaughtered the children to their fetishes, they entered my sanctuary to desecrate it. That is what they did in my house. Moreover, they sent for men to come from afar, men to whom a messenger was sent, and they came for them. Aholibah, you bathed, painted your eyes, and donned your finery, and you sat on a grand couch with a set table in front of it, and it was my incense and my oil you laid upon it, and the noise of its carefree multitude was there, of numerous men brought drunk from the desert, and they put bracelets on their arms and splendid crowns upon their heads. Then I said to destruction with adultery. Look, they are still going on with those same fornications of hers, and it would go to her as one goes to a prostitute. That is how they went to Aholah and Aholibah, wanton woman. But righteous men shall punish them with the punishments for adultery and for bloodshed, for they are adulteresses and have blood on their hands. For thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, summon an assembly against them, and make them an object of horror and plunder. Let the assembly pelt them with stones and cut them down with their swords. Let them kill their sons and daughters and burn down their homes. I will put an end to wantonness in the land, and all the women shall take warning not to imitate your wantonness. They shall punish you for your wantonness, and you shall suffer the penalty for your sinful idolatry. And you shall know that I am my Father in heaven, Elohim. In the ninth year, on the 10th day of the 10th In the ninth year, on the 10th day of the 10th month, the word of our Father in heaven came to me, O mortal, record this date, this exact date, for this very day the king of Babylon has laid siege to Jerusalem. Further speaking, an allegory to the rebellious breed, and say to them, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, put the cauldron on the fire, put it on, and then pour water into it, collect it in the pieces of meat, every choice piece, thigh and shoulder, fill it with the best cuts, take the best of the flock. Also pile the cuts under it, get it boiling briskly, and cook the cuts in it. And surely thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, woe to the city of blood, a cauldron whose scum is in it, whose scum has not been cleaned out, empty it piece by piece. No lot has fallen upon it, for the blood she shed is still in her. She set it upon a bare rock. She did not pour it out on the ground to cover it with earth. She set her blood upon the bare rock, so that it was not covered, so that it may stir up my fury to take vengeance. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, woe to the city of blood. I in turn will make a great blaze, pile on the logs, kindle the fire, cook the meat through and stew it completely. Cook the meat through and stew it completely, and let the bones be charred. Let it stand empty on the coals. Let it stand empty on the coals until it becomes so hot that the copper glows. Then its uncleanness shall melt away in it, and its rust be consumed. It has frustrated all effort. Its thick scum will not leave it into the fire with its scum for your vile impurity, because I sought to cleanse you of your impurity, but you will not be cleansed. You shall never be clean again until I have satisfied my fury upon you until I have satisfied my fury upon you. I, our Father in heaven, have spoken. It shall come to pass, and I will do it. I will not refrain or spare or relent. You shall be punished according to your ways and your deeds, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. The word of our Father in heaven came to me, O mortal. I am about to take away the delight of your eyes from you through pestilence, but you shall not lament or weep or let your tears flow. Moan softly, observe no mourning, observe no mourning for the dead. Put on your turban and put your sandals on your feet. Do not cover over your upper lip, and do not eat the bread of comforters. In the evening, my wife died, and in the morning I did as I had been commanded. And when I spoke to the people that morning, the people asked me, "Will you not tell us what these things portend? Will you not tell us what these things portend for us, that you are acting so?" I answered them, "The word of our Father in heaven has come to me to tell the house of Israel, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I'm going to desecrate my sanctuary, your pride and glory, the delight of your eyes, and the desire of your heart. And the sons and daughters you have left behind shall fall by the sword, and Ezekiel shall become important for you. You shall do just as he has done. When it happens, you shall know that I am my Father in heaven, Elohim. Accordingly, you shall do as I have done. You shall not cover over your upper lips or eat the bread of comforters, and your turban shall remain on your heads, and your sandals upon your feet. You shall not lament or weep, but you shall be heart sick because of your iniquities, and shall moan to one another. You, O mortal, take note on the day that I take their stronghold from them, their pride and joy, the delight of their eyes, and the longing of their hearts. Their sons and daughters on that day, a fugitive will come to you to let you hear it with your own ears. On that day, your mouth shall be open to the fugitive, and you shall speak and no longer be dumb. So you shall be a portent for them, and they shall know that I am our Father in heaven. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. The word of our Father in heaven came to me. O mortal, set your face toward the Ammonites and prophesy against them. Say to the Ammonites, hear the word of our Father in heaven, Elohim. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because you cried, aha, over my sanctuary when it was desecrated, and over the land of Israel when it was laid waste, and over the house of Judah when it went into exile. Surely I will deliver you to the Canaanites as a possession. They shall set up their encampments among you and pitch their dwellings in your midst. They shall eat your produce, and they shall drink your milk. I will make Rabbah a pasture for camels, and Ammon a place for sheep to lie down. And you shall know that I am our Father in heaven. For thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because you clapped your hands and stamped your feet and rejoiced over the land of Israel with such utter scorn. Assuredly I will stretch out my hand against you and give you as booty to the nations. I will cut you off from among the peoples and wipe you out from among countries and destroy you, and you shall know that I am our Father in heaven. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because Moab and Seir said, see, the house of Judah is like all other nations. Assuredly I will lay bare the flank of Moab, all its towns, to the last one, Beth Jeshemoth, Baal, Meon, and Kiriathaim, the glory of the country. I will deliver it, together with Ammon, to the Canaanites as their possession. Thus Ammon shall not be remembered among the nations, and I will mete out punishments to Moab, and they shall know that I am our Father in heaven. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because Edom acted vengefully against the house of Judah and incurred guilt by wreaking revenge upon it. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I will stretch out my hand against Edom and cut off from it man and beast, and I will lay it in ruins from Teman to Dedan. They shall fall by the sword. I will wreak my vengeance on Edom through my people Israel, and they shall take action against Edom in accordance with my blazing anger, and they shall know my vengeance, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, because the Philistines in their ancient hatred acted vengefully and with utter scorn sought revenge and destruction. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I will stretch out my hand against the Philistines and cut off the Cherethites and wipe out the last survivors of the seacoast. I will wreak frightful vengeance upon them by furious punishment, and when I inflict my vengeance upon them, they shall know that I am our Father in heaven. In the 11th year, on the first of the month, the word of our Father in heaven came to me, O mortal, because Tyre gloated over Jerusalem. Aha, the gateway of the peoples is broken. It has become mine. I shall be filled now that it is laid in ruins. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I am going to deal with you, O Tyre. I will hurl many nations against you. As the sea hurls its waves, they shall destroy the walls of Tyre and demolish your towers, and I will scrape her soil, offer and leave her a naked rock. She shall be in the heart of the sea, a place for drying nets. For I have spoken it, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. She shall become spoil for the nations, and her daughter, towns in the country, shall be put to the sword, and they shall know that I am our Father in heaven. For thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, I will bring from the north against Tyre, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, a king of kings with horses, chariots, and horsemen, a great mass of troops. Your daughter, towns in the country, he shall put to the sword. He shall erect towers against you, and cast the mountains against you, and raise a wall of bucklers against you. He shall turn the force of his battering rams against your walls, and smash your towers with his axes from the cloud raised by his horses. Dust shall cover you from the clatter of horsemen and wheels and chariots. Your walls shall shake when he enters your gates, as men enter a breached city. With the hoofs of his steeds he shall trample all your streets. He shall put your people to the sword, and your mighty pillars shall crash to the ground. They shall plunder your wealth and loot your merchandise. They shall raise your walls and tear down your splendid houses. And they shall cast into the water your stones and timber and soil. I will put an end to the murmur of your songs, and the sound of your lyres shall be heard no more. I will make you a naked rock. You shall be a place for drying nets. You shall never be rebuilt, for I have spoken, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. Thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, to Tyre, the coastland shall quake at the sound of your downfall, when the wounded groan, when slaughter is rife within you. All the rulers of the sea shall descend from their thrones. They shall remove their robes and strip off their broader garments. They shall clothe themselves with trembling and shall sit on the ground. They shall tremble every moment, and they shall be aghast at you. And they shall intone a dirge over you, and they shall say to you, how you have perished, you who were peopled from the seas, O renowned city, mighty on the sea, where she and her inhabitants, who cast their terror on all its inhabitants. Now shall the coastlands tremble on the day of your downfall, and the coastlands by the sea be terrified at your end. For thus said our Father in heaven, Elohim, when I make you a ruined city, like cities empty of inhabitants, when I bring the deep over you and its mighty waters cover you, then I will bring you down with those who go down to the pit, to the people of old. I will install you in the netherworld with those that go down to the pit, like the ruins of old, so that you shall not be inhabited, and shall not eradicate splendor in the land of the living. I will make you a whore, and you shall cease to be. You shall be sought, but shall never be found again, declares our Father in heaven, Elohim. I'll stop at 27. Yeah, Father, the Son, and the Spirit be with us. I pray you all are well. I love you all. Let you know if you're watching this, I love you. Always get your readings in my boy. Make sure you're always doing this stuff. Make sure you're always taking care of yourself. Make sure you're always doing the things that you need to do. And understand if it's not doing nothing for your soul, nothing for your mind, nothing for your body, in a healthy, positive way. If it's not love, it's not our Father in heaven. If He's not leading you to do that thing, if you're not fasting and praying, you will not get the revelation of what He needs you to do. So you need to go and figure out what He needs you to do. If you're of the age to where you can fast and pray, that's what you need to do. And you need to figure out what our Father, Messiah, and Spirit need you to do. Amen. And Father, Messiah, and Spirit, be with us. Be true, my boy.